This is the Milo Sweet Podcast, where you'll learn to get unstuck. Start now. Conquer life's challenges by learning to do difficult. Find quick and clever ways to overcome. Wait, did you think life was going to be easy? Remember, all of your excuses are now dead to me. Let's get started. Guess what time it is? It's time for you to hit the subscribe button and find just 1% that you think will benefit from this. But if you're feeling a little generous, right? Or you're super free with your time right now, probably doing nothing because you're listening to this. Well, maybe if you're doing something, actually just make yourself free right now. Hit subscribe. What are you waiting for? Hit it. Come on. Hit subscribe. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing good, thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah. Your site, I should do more research up front, but I really just don't have the time. So
Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
let's just roll with it.
Yeah, let's do that. Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to welcome you to the show.
Okay.
And then you will explain a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just ask questions from there.
Okay, you got it.
All right. Welcome to the Milo Sweet Podcast, Cesar. Thank you so much for being here. Can you hear a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I thank you for having me. So my backstory is I'm actually born in Mexico City, and I came to the States when I was 10 years old. And really, though, my story started when I was 4, because at the age of 4, I actually started working, and I needed to do that to be able to survive. My mom had taken her leap of faith and left the Mexico to come to the U.S. to be able to provide for us. So for me, that's when I started working, and ever since then, I think I created and grew some values in terms of just becoming that entrepreneur and working harder on myself than I do on anybody else. And through that, I had definitely many different obstacles and challenges that I've gone through, right? And now I'm a full-time entrepreneur.
Wow, that's amazing. So working at 4, you're piquing my interest just with that statement alone. Do you have any memories about that? Is there anything that you can remember from that?
I do. You know, it was very interesting. So as a matter of fact, growing up, I didn't have anything, right? So I grew up to a very poor family. It was at that time, it was my mom, my older brother, my grandmother, and myself. I actually don't know who's my biological father. I never met him, or I don't even know his name, to be honest with you. And so it was really just the 4 of us. And I remember, just living in this one, what we called our house, but it was really more like a one room that was literally no bigger than 200 square feet, right? So you can imagine having 4 people living in such a small place. But again, that was our house, right? And this place didn't have any insulation. We lived literally and slept right on top of the dirt floor. It was made out of plywood and sheet metal. And that was kind of like my norm, though. That was me growing up. And it really, I think, my biggest turning point was at that time was when my mom left, because now we had to actually start working. So we used to go to the flea market, and we will sell, donuts and cookies and things like that we'll actually bake at the house, and we'll be selling that. And then that didn't work out too good, so we started selling taquitos and quesadillas and different things, right, just to kind of bring more money to the table. And that also didn't work out too good. And at one point, my grandma, because when my mom left, it was just my older brother and my grandmother. We ended up actually buying sewing machines, and so each one of us had sewing machines, so I can actually sew clothes. And I remember staying late and just sewing clothes for dolls, and that was one way for us to be able to make money. And one lesson that I learned from that is that my grandmother always said, it doesn't matter what we're going through, you need to make sure you go to school. You need to make sure you get your education. You need to make sure that you stay focused on that. And so we always went to school, and we always had that. The one thing that I didn't have as a kid, though, is that I didn't have that childhood that normally people would have, right? Because I came from school, I would do my homework, and I literally would work the rest of my day. Like, there was times that if I would go out and play, like my grandma would come out with, her belt or something to get back into the house so I could start working, because that was our norm. Like, that was what we knew, right? And growing through that, there was definitely a lot of lessons. Another thing that I remember too is, like, there was times we didn't have anything to eat, and so I called it our Mexican specialty dish, which was a tortilla with grain toast we had for days in and days out. But let me tell you, though, that was very satisfying, because I mean, I love it. It was actually really good, to have that.
That's honestly, and I'm not here to mock that, but I eat that for fun now. It's actually delicious, especially if you know how to make your own tortilla.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing better than like a freshly made tortilla with some salt on there.
Yeah.
Whether it's fried or baked,
Yep.
It is delicious.
It is.
So yeah, like once I knew how to make them, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have been missing out on life, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know this sounds interesting to say, but I kind of would have preferred your childhood, meaning like you learned so many skills. I get it that you want to play, but as adults, I feel like we understand what play really is. As a kid, you're really just needing the chance to have those tools. Obviously, having, to not worry about certain things could be helpful, but I do find that when I look back at my childhood, and we were not like poor, but I thought we had a mansion. No, we did not. I never saw lack as a kid, right? You always just see opportunity. And I think like the fact that you were able to just keep creating as a way of getting out, it's like, who doesn't want that skill in life? We actually need that mindset right now, is to say, where is the opportunity? You literally just say you had nothing and you're like, yeah, we're selling stuff. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. You would be insane. But guess what? You've actually primed yourself to be super successful for right now. I don't know. I feel like that's a huge, huge head start on what it really takes to make it in life, right? Just that practice of like, it's a grueling practice of just keep trying, keep failing, not doing it, not working out, not having enough. We never, even as we grow, we never really have enough. Yes, it gets better, but there is still an appetite to continue to grow, to learn, develop, and you learned that at such an early age. Although, some foundational principles maybe have been unfortunate, but I don't know. I didn't live it, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely, I could see the benefit, because sometimes in my house, I allow my kids to experience grueling pain because they have to know how to cope with it. They have to know what that looks like. And a lot of times we become adults and we have no tools to help us be an adult. So that's really fascinating that even at the age of 4, you were able to have those tools. I almost feel like our younger selves know more about our future than we really know, right? Like, how beautiful of that tool you were given at such a young age, and now you're an entrepreneur and you do a lot of things. You have CBD oil, you have your real estate business, and then you're a mindset coach. So tell me about that. Like, how does that all work together?
Yeah, right. Well, again, and you kind of go back to that. I now seeing things from this perspective, from my now age, and I look back when I was a kid. Again, I think part of some of the lessons that I took from that is that I became that person that always wanted to do more. I became that person that, is not afraid to get into different things and try different things and just work and create that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And so, working at an early age and having that gave me the drive to do the things that I do now, right? And so those are some of the things that I ended up doing, which got me to my very first thing was real estate, right? Real estate investing. And I got into real estate investing for different reasons. At the time that I got into it, and then from that, many other things kind of grew out of that, right? And that became, I felt like, well, okay, that's good, and I took my leap of faith by becoming a full-time entrepreneur, and I said, okay, well, there's got to be more to me, and I can do more, and definitely give back more, because that's one thing that I realized too, is like, for me as a kid, for me, it started all when I was a kid, right? And so for me as a kid, my grandmother, my mom, they had faith in me. They looked at something that I had, and they pretty much gave me their 100% for me to become somebody, right? And so I said, well, what about if I can do the same thing for other people? I believe that the more people we can help, the more people, the more that we can help ourselves too, right? And so I decided to create other things with the things that I have, and got into writing some books. So I have a couple of books that I like to empower people, inspire people, and really just give them some tools or ideas they can utilize to really help their own journey, their own life, right? And so I got into that aspect of that, and then I got into the mindset. I've been working very hard, I would say, in the last couple of years on my own self, right? I believe that you have to work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else, and sometimes we tend to forget that. And so
Yes.
and that's one thing that for me, I remember when I was in corporate America, I used to do that. I used to work a lot, like 10, 12 hours a day, and I love my job, don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes it was pretty stressful, yet I was working to create somebody else's dream. And even at that point, I also saw many people that were in the company for 10, 15, 20 years that were getting laid off due to the fact that they were getting old. I mean, that was really the sad part about it. And so I realized that I do need to work harder on myself. And so then I started working after work on my real estate business. I started working on myself. I started writing, I started reading, I started really working on my mind. And few things that I've done since then is that I do now, even so now, is I really focus on the energy. I believe that everything's energy, and I also believe that what you think expands, right? So the ideas, the thoughts, the intentions that you have are going to end up expanding, and so therefore you want to put a lot of that positive ideas into that effort. And so I do some of the morning things that I do reading, I do affirmations, I create my intentions, I do journaling, I read also every day, and I exercise, right? I think that's also another critical part is keeping your this vehicle that's carrying you through this journey, the vehicle being your life, and the journey being or the vehicle being your body, and the journey being life. I feel that you have to make sure that you take care of that, otherwise that journey is going to end up pretty soon, right? And so those are some of the things that I do, and how everything kind of comes in together.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful to point that out. I think also just encouraging people that you need to have a toolkit, whatever it looks like for you. You definitely need to have one, because you need to first even know what's in your mind, right? Like you said, to work on yourself. It's scary to just even want to know what's in your mind. And if you're married or you have kids, sometimes you're like, I want things to be good, but you also don't really want to know the truth. So you have to have a really good relationship with just what is, so that you can figure out what do you want it to be, right? And it is an exercise. It's a physical and mental exercise, figuring out what's in your toolkit, what's important for you, what you value. And I think that is foundational for just life in general, right? Now, when you said that you got started with real estate, because I do find real estate, I got started with real estate, and I didn't know how much of it was mindset. Like, it is huge. Yeah. Like, yes, you learn terms, negotiating, laws, you learn how to do real estate, but the action behind real estate is really huge. It's really based on mindset, right? So tell me about that. Like, how did you get licensed, or do you do investing for yourself and you just teach? Like, how did that get started?
So it really started with me wanting to, I think we all want to create additional income and then eventually
yes.
So you do different things, right? And so for me, I actually started real estate back in 2005, and I can tell you I failed miserably. I mean, I got into real estate. I had a couple of properties, got into kind of like the buying and renting, and right before the housing crash, I literally lost everything. So I said, you know what? That's it. Wow. This is not for me, right? And so I kind of gave up on that dream. I was 29 at that time, 2009, 2010. And I gave up on that dream because I lost everything, 10 years of, houses that were foreclosed and all that stuff, and 10 years of just bad credit. It's like, I'm done. That's it. There's nothing else to me. I got reintroduced to that back in 2015, I believe. And And I said, okay, let me try it. I mean, I have a good corporate job. I'm making good money, although I'm working a lot of hours. And I felt like in that current job, I wasn't getting nowhere. Like it seems like I had tapped out, right? And so I think that's one thing that many people, tend to go through, and also because of what they're going through, they tend to just not take that additional action, right? To me, yes, it was a comfortable check, getting that secure payment. Except because I have that drive since I was a kid. It's like I wanted to do more for myself, and I felt like I was not gonna go nowhere. And instead of just sitting on the sidelines and just waiting for something to happen, I created something. So I went back to real estate and got involved with a couple of mentoring classes, if you may, in real estate investing, right? So that's what I do. I don't have my license. I do real estate investing, and
that's perfect.
And so I got involved on that. And, I started doing that, and I started studying that. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm going to take my leap of faith, because I cannot do both. They were both taking a lot of time. My full-time job and my real estate was taking a lot of me, And let me tell you, that's another one of those things that you have to really overcome. At least for me, it took me from the time that I said I'm going to leave my job, which was very secure, which I really enjoy. I travel all over the U.S. I had a really good position, making good money. I also had friends that they're saying, you're dumb if you leave your job for something that is not even secure. You get a lot of those voices, either inner voices or outer voices that are trying to talk you out of it. Well, they sure did, because the minute that I tried doing it, I actually was not able to follow through. I still remember like if it was yesterday. I was going to my employer, given my 2-week notice, and I just couldn't do it. It was on a Monday. I couldn't do it. It took me 7 months to actually follow through because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing that security, the fear of, all these different things that maybe might be coming up to people that want to make that leap of faith. And there was also lessons learned there though, right? And so I'm glad I did, and I think everything happens when it needs to happen. And so when I decided to take the leap of faith, I just concentrated on my real estate 100%, and out of that, more other things grew out, more passion, right? More things came out of that. And so now I also have a real estate mentoring program where I actually have students that go through the mentoring program that want to learn how to do real estate. And funny enough, the very first session that I have with my students, the very first module, is not even about real estate. It's about the mindset. And here's the reason why. Because I've been through mentoring programs. I've been through a lot of mentoring programs that are for real estate. And we focus a lot on the technical. We focus a lot on the terminology. We focus a lot of the all of those different things, right? I can give you the skills. I can give you the ideas. I can give you the tools. However, if your mind is not where it needs to be, then it doesn't matter what I tell you, you're not going to be able to overcome that. And that's for anything in life. It's not necessarily just in real estate. And so I focus a lot on the mindset because, in real estate, as you know, if you're either knocking on people's doors or you're calling on people or you're trying to offer your service, how many times are people going to tell you no? Or even right?
A lot.
Or pick up the phone or even call you names. I mean, I had it all. So, people get discouraged because of that, and they feel like, okay, well, I got 2 or 3 or 4 no's, and so therefore this is not for me. And so I focus on the mindset. That's the very first thing that I talk about, and I give my students ideas, exercises, and things to do to work on that mindset, because that's to me, that's very critical to be successful.
That is very interesting, because I had like a lot of mental hurdles to overcome with real estate, and I think I didn't realize them. I'm kind of a learn as I do kind of person, so I usually don't realize something until after I do it, and I'm like, oh, I'm overcoming a hurdle. I get that. And I'm pretty much like, once I make a decision, I'm very much so all in. So some of the hurdles you don't realize you're overcoming, because when you go all in, it's like going from 0 to 100 full speed. So you kind of don't realize you have to rev up, and the speed helps you to forget how long the process or whatever the hurdle was. So I find that was interesting, because one of my weirdest hurdles was just like being on social media with real estate. I don't know why, but I was just really comfortable just being in person with people and meeting people out and about. And that just worked really well for me. And just trying to translate that online was actually a hurdle. Like, I'm over it now, clearly, because I'm podcasting and I'm just all out there right now. But I think it was because it was, you know what it was? Like, I live a lot of my day with my kids. I homeschool. And so I was taking my kids with me on a lot of, you know, tours, or just they're out with me doing deals. And so it just felt really invasive to like, that I like to keep some things private. So that was a mental hurdle. And I didn't realize I had that until Corona happened. And I'm like, I can't do any of my business. I can't go to the park or the local coffee shop or the library or the soccer field, or like just the things that I was doing where I was meeting a huge amount of, you know, clientele, or just being able to build relationships. And it forced me to realize, like, you either need to get with the program or it's not going to work for you. So I do think starting with mental hurdles. And then I think the other part is, you know, your mindset is really your toolkit for how you're going to tackle any problem. So you're going to have a lot of hurdles to overcome in real estate or anything you try that's new. And if you don't have the proper tools and you don't even know that you're going to even need tools, you're going to take that as a sign that failure or rejection. Or, you know, there's times I would door knock and like it would not go good, right? And you took that as a sign of like, that's final. But usually I just, you know, took it as like, that's just today. But tomorrow I might win, or the next hour there may be a win. So I think the mindset really does help. Now, how did you get into like mindset coaching? First off, before you answer, I literally just found out what a mindset coach was like maybe 2 weeks ago. So I had no idea that it existed. Probably, you know, I read a lot of books, so I'm probably sure I use a lot of the tools, but I was like, this is this is a thing. So it's really interesting that you said that, and I literally just found out what that was.
Yeah, so I actually got introduced through that, through my own journey. I've been working really the last couple of years on a lot of self-care, self-development, just working on myself, right? I realized that even though I felt like I was successful to an extent in my career, there was other aspects of my life that I was lacking. And so I wanted to find a space, a community that can help me with that, right? So just like in real estate, I had, you know, mentors that helped me out with the real estate aspect of that. And I wanted to get something that was more on the other aspect, or on the other side of that. And through my own journey, I came across different coaches. I have a mentor. His name is Marshall Silver, that has helped me out a lot through that journey. And then through one of his communities, I actually found somebody else where I got into NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, right? And yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was very fascinating. So neuro-linguistic programming is all about the mind, right? So neuro is the programs that go into your mind. Linguistic is the language, so how you speak to yourself and to others. And then the programs and then the programs that go into that. So the mind, the language, or the words, and then the programs, right? And with that is very powerful in the aspect of, you know, when you start tapping into your mind, right, into your brain. One thing that we tend to forget is that the most powerful tool that we have is between our 2 ears, which is our brain. And you know, it's composed of two different aspects, right? You have the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. And the unconscious mind, which is very powerful, is merely a computer. Whatever you put in is what's going to put out, right? And it's just like a computer. So if you put any good programs into your computer, then they're the good programs. If you put some crappy programs into your computer, then they're really, really crappy programs, right? So the mind is the same. And so with that comes that mindset, like listening to the right kind of stuff. Like, I don't even watch TV anymore because there's so many negative programs that you're watching, and on the unconscious level, you don't even realize that, but you're programming your mind with all the things that are happening, whether it's a murder, whether it's, you know, all these different things that are going on, you know, throughout the society. So I kind of got rid of that. The other thing too is, listening to music. I love music, so I'm very selective on what kind of music that I listen to, right? I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of motivational people, or I even listen to some audiobooks, right? So that's another thing that again is very critical to take on when you're programming your mind. And then the other one, which I think it matters a lot, is the words that you use, right? There's so many words that come out of our mouth, and we don't even realize that. So the words that you use, they do matter, how you talk to yourself and how you talk to other people. So I'll give you an example. Like I used to do this before too. Like if something didn't go too good with like a real estate deal, or maybe when I first started doing cold calling and I felt like that conversation didn't go too good, I'm like, oh man, I messed this up, I'm dumb, I could have done better, and I'm already like blaming myself and talking down to myself, right? And so you got to change that. You got to change that aspect of that, because without even thinking about it, you're programming yourself by saying you are that, whatever it follows, right? So you can change that by doing positive affirmations, and then take it one step further. When we look at the NLP, is you utilize physiology, right? So your physiology comes into play. So if you say I am a great person, or something to that extent, right? And you say with like this gratitude and you empower and conviction, guess what? It is more powerful to you, because you're using not only the word, but you're also using the physiology, right? So that's another one that I think is very critical when it comes down to mind coaching and really working through your mind and the different aspects. And then the other thing too is how you talk to other people, because even though you're portraying that to other people, you have to make sure that you're putting out the same type of beliefs that you have in your mind, right? So it goes down to a lot of those different things. And one of the things that I do with some of my clients, I have an accountability group and a mind coaching group that I have students that come to my program, and we go over taking either hurdles or beliefs, negative beliefs, and turn those into positive beliefs through the programming of the mind. And then we can also take something that might be a like that you want to make it a dislike, because it's no longer something that you want to have. So for instance, if you're eating hamburgers all the time and you need to stop doing that, you don't know how to stop, right? I know you don't know how to stop. We can create something to make you stop doing that, right? Or even so, now one thing that I'm doing too is helping people find their passion and purpose through a series of events, and really tapping into the soul, into the mind, and just looking deep down into that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said all of this. And I mean, I feel like that's a whole nother conversation. So my brain is processing all that information. But it is interesting that you're saying all this, because I find that you really have to be aware. Like when I became a mom, I was completely, utterly aware of just how many things I didn't know and how flawed I was in my thinking. I didn't know how I knew this, but I knew that if my child repeated the things I thought back to me, I would have been mortified. And so, my journey began. It just unfolded of like just trying to work on that, because I was terrified. Like, I mean, I had severe anxiety about being a failure as a mom, because I just didn't know what to do, right? But through the journey of learning, like you said, working on yourself, trying, failing, but all to the point of being better. And what was weird is I let my children are my accountability partners. It's age appropriate, it's in a respectful way, but a lot of times I found that because they're with me all day, they see versions of me that no one gets to see. And that if I allow them access to identify what tool I'm using correctly and what tool I'm using incorrectly, then I would put them in a position to really understand who they were, to understand how to work on our relationship, and to be better. As parents, we feel like, well, I'm the parent, I should do this. And I was like, I am the parent, I am the mentor, I take that on. I'm the leader, but I want to collaborate with you. I want to encourage you. I want you to stretch me, and I want to be stretched. I want to be able to stretch you. And so I found that to be really helpful for me. I don't know if there's like research out on that, but for me, I found that I'm not saying we're equals in that sense. I'm definitely taking on the responsibility to be your mentor, to guide you, to lead by example. but I'm also not above reproach. So I'm allowing you to have access, like you're saying, that hamburger that you can't stop eating. When I have an eating issue, I tell my kids, hey, I'm going to try to work on eating more broccoli. Who's in? And even if they're not in, we have a conversation about it. And that conversation really is super empowering, right? It's super amazing to see little people light up and say, you know what? I just don't want that today. I don't want chips. I don't want that. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, what should I do with that? And at first, I didn't know if this was the right idea or the wrong idea, right? But I thought, well, we all know how to present ourselves in a good manner in front of people, right? Like, be on your best behavior. We all know what that looks like. But I thought my kids are gonna see me at my most fragile, delicate, place, and I want to use that as a strength to them. I want to give them autonomy, and I want to create a collaborative team effort, and I want them to get a huge head start on me. So I thought if they could learn from me, but also learn what not to do, and I clearly empower them to tell them that is not right. You're right. And you don't have the flaws I have, so you get a head start. You don't have to implement this habit, and mommy's going to work on changing it. That I found that to be really helpful. I'm learning how you're saying it, and I'm realizing that in a way, obviously I can't have them for accountability partners on everything, but in just little minute habits, like you said, that you're like, I'm trying to figure out how to replace this for something. They'll just clear. Kids love to tell you what they think. So they don't hesitate to say, those jeans are too small, like they will tell me. Or like this morning, I woke up and I was practicing to do it like a round off, it's like a cartwheel, but landing. And so I thought, I got it. And when my kids woke up, I showed them and they're like, you're not ready to record. You're not ready to make a video of that because it still needs some work. But I felt so good about it. And it was like, I think I love that you're practicing, Mom. It's not ready. And I thought, how beautiful is that? But it's not always fun. I didn't like hearing that. I was like, what do you know? Well, they know how to do one. So I'm the student in that scenario. So I love how I'm learning how accountability works. Sometimes we have it and we don't even realize it, but that's super beneficial. Now we're going to wrap it up. I want to know, what's one thing you think people should have top of mind right now with everything?
I would say the one thing is, it comes down to really focusing down to, focus on the positive outcome, right? So I think that one thing that people have on top of mind is what do I want to accomplish, and what do I want to do in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and beyond that, take it one step further, right? When we're looking at what I want to be able to do in the next 30, 60, 90 days, is create very specific targets. I don't call them goals, I call them targets, very specific targets or plans of what they want to be able to do. And then with that, there's a couple of things you have to do. Number one, whatever is going to be that major task or target, then take small tasks that are going to support that by creating them into groups and adding a specific date to complete, and then also finding a way that you can actually track that progress. So you want to be able to have a specific target, which is the end in mind. You want to have small actions to that you can actually put a date against it, and you want to be able to quantify it and be able to measure that. And then the last thing is start taking action immediately. Like, take massive action wherever it is. Just do something to get you closer to that end goal.
Now, I said I had one last question, but now you sparked one more in me before we wrap it up. Is how do people have hope or like get over the fear of that, like massive, to go from no action or little action to massive action? That is, I think it starts with one step at a time, one step at a time. And I'll give you an example, right? If you wanted to become a book author, right, and you want to write a book, and you it's a big project, you don't know what to do, and like what the massive action is for me to start doing, to start writing a chapter or start writing the outline, whatever the case may be.
the massive action is actually creating different small steps that are going to lead to that. So what I would say is, if you don't know what to write about, write the title of the book. If you don't know what to write on the title of the book, write a paragraph. If you don't know what the paragraph, write a sentence. If you don't know the sentence, write a word. In other words, do something, just don't do nothing, right? Same thing like you go to the gym and you want to lose 10 pounds, but you're afraid to go to the gym. Then start by putting on your running shoes or your shorts and just have that, feel that, and then graduate from that and then get on the car, then graduate from that and then go sit on the parking lot, then graduate from that and actually go into the gym, and then graduate from that and actually start, lifting one weight at a time. In other words, just take little actions to be able to get you to that massive action. You get me?
Yes, that's wonderful. So everyone out there, you need to take little actions to get you to that massive action. Now, I'm a little crazy. I went all in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to podcast with as many entrepreneurs as possible in the next 50 days until I just burn out. But you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. I think sometimes you have to start where you can wrap your head around it, right? Wherever you're going to be consistent, and then the journey will kind of unfold for you as you continue. So I think that's super interesting as well. It's like, I didn't know how to be a good mom or like how to stay married, but the journey just unfolds as you continue to learn and try, repeat, learn, try, repeat, assess. You just keep repeating that. And then over time, things click. You have eureka moments, but don't take your failure. If you're experiencing something that you failed at, it's really not final. Like my kids always say, I failed at that, but I can always win tomorrow or the next time. I can, we always do that when we have game night, because I am a tyrant when I win. I make sure they know. I feel like at that point we're equals, and I am going to be a winner that might need to have a different mindset change. So they're usually like, that's okay, Mom. I lost that game, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to practice. I'm going to show you. And there's times I get humiliated, right? I'm super uncomfortable, but you come back from that, right?
It's very simple. You can actually find me at my website, www.cesarrespino.com. And Cesar is Cesar. So Cesar, Cesar Espino, ESPINO.com. And from there, you can connect to anything that I do. And you can actually connect to my social media, which is also Cesar R. Espino. In pretty much most of the platforms. So that's the best way you can contact me.
Right, you're so welcome. Oh, that's wonderful. We have to do this again. We'll find out more, maybe some real estate investing tips, or find out more about mindset. I think that would be amazing.
All right, that's another episode in the books. Hello? I said it's over. Why are you still listening? Like, seriously, the episode is over. If you're still listening right now, you know what? You're probably a chronic procrastinator. Guess what? I'm still listening to. Come on, for real, seriously. We gotta go do something productive. No, like, for real. No, for real. Okay, you can keep listening.